Good evening and welcome to Reality Check, the show that separates fact from fiction. I'm Vikram Chandra. I'll be anchoring this show on Wednesday and on Thursday. Tonight we take a look at what I will call the rise of the nanny state and one particular aspect of it. Now I'm sure you've all noticed it. We are a free country, but increasingly you're being told what to do. You're being told whom to love, and as we saw today in Meerut, the moral police won't hesitate to drag you off to the police station if they feel like it, even if you were within your own home, in your own house. You're being told what to eat. Beef, of course, goes without saying, don't even think about it. But that's spreading. No meat during Navratras, no chicken on Mahavir Jayanti. Who knows where we will end up when it comes to food. You're being told what to wear, especially if you're a woman. Short skirts, revealing outfits, come on, none of that stuff. This is 2017 after all. You're being told what to watch, and yes, Mr. Nilani, I am referring to you. You can't watch just about anything. Hey, a few months ago, we were even told how to spend our money. Certainly couldn't be in cash, digital payments, debit cards only, but all of this is incidental. The nanny state gets really upset about so-called sin goods, cigarettes, gutka, alcohol. Now, nothing entirely wrong with that. Those things are bad for you in excess and can have a very negative social impact. So, some amount of control, there is a debate, I guess, about it. The extent to which the state should go, of course, is a different matter altogether. And we are going to be discussing that today. Tonight, we will take a look at one of those so-called sin goods, alcohol. And yes, you are being told what to drink and where to drink. This is having two aspects to it. Prohibition, which comes from the state and state governments to be more precise. And then the new rules on drinking near highways and the sale of alcohol near highways, which has come from the courts. So today, we are going to be discussing both aspects of this. I just want to welcome all of our guests here. Joining me right here in the studio is Ankur Bhatia, Executive Director, Bird Group, has a hotel right next to a highway. Has been rather concerned about what the court has said recently. GVL Narasimha Rao is joining us, spokesperson of the BJP representing the government. Many BJP governments, of course, are talking about prohibition. Harman Singh Sidhu, it's great to have you with us, because he's the petitioner, he's the man behind that highway liquor ban. Although, were you anticipating everything that has happened? I'm not quite sure, but I'll get your sense on it. It's a pleasure to have with us the Additional Solicitor General of India, Pinky Anand. We also have with us Rahul Singh, who's from the National Restaurant Association of India, heading that. So thank you all so much for joining us. Now, before I come to the highways, let me just start with prohibition. Let me just take you through some of the states that have already banned alcohol, prohibition in other words. Let's start, of course, with Gujarat. Gujarat, the first state which actually did it. Alcohol ban there has been banned there for a long period of time. Kerala, prohibition. Bihar recently came out with prohibition. Nagaland, there's prohibition, partially in Manipur and Lakshadweep. So those are some of the places where you already have a prohibition in one form or the other. But now it is spreading. Here are some of the statements we have seen in the recent past, just the last couple of weeks, which shows you that increasingly prohibition or some sort of control on alcohol is going to be coming. This is Raman Singh, Chief Minister of Chhattisgarh. This is what he has said. We will be closing liquor shops in villages with a population up to 3,000 people. In Madhya Pradesh, this is what Shivraj Singh Chauhan has said. All liquor shops will be shut in a phased manner slowly. We've also, of course, heard in Tamil Nadu, this is something that Jayalalitha had actually promised way back in 2016, phased prohibition, and we're going to see whether it actually comes to bear. Now, you may think these are just statements, but these statements are being repeated. Just today, we heard this once again from the Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister on what is about to happen in Madhya Pradesh when it comes to prohibition.
मुख्यमंत्री के नाते मैं खुद नशा मुक्ति अभियान चलाऊंगा। इस बार नर्मदा सेवा यात्रा में हम लोगों ने तय किया है, नर्मदा के दोनों तटों पर 5-5 किलोमीटर दूर तक जितनी शराब की दुकानें थी, 1 अप्रैल से सब दुकानें बंद कर दी गई है। कोई दारू की दुकान नर्मदा तट पर खुली नहीं रहेगी। दूसरे चरण में बहनों और भाइयों, हम नशा मुक्ति अभियान चलाएंगे, लोगों को नशा मुक्ति का संकल्प दिलाएंगे। लोग कहते हैं एक झटके में क्यों बंद नहीं कर रहे, इसलिए कि अवैध दारू का खतरा है, जहरीली शराब का खतरा है। हम पहले जनता को अवेयर करेंगे, नशा मुक्ति अभियान चलाएंगे। नशा मुक्ति संगठन बनाएंगे, गांव-गांव जाएंगे। मैं आप सबसे अपील करना चाहता हूं, अपने अपने गांव को नशा मुक्त करने का संकल्प लो। ये संकल्प गांव जैसे जैसे लेते जाएंगे, हम दारू की दुकानें बंद करते चले जाएंगे।
All right, so that's what's about to happen in Madhya Pradesh. GVL Narasimha, let me just get you into this. Just trying to understand, many of the states that I referred to, which are now talking about prohibition, actually BJP-run states. In fact, a lot of the moral policing is happening in BJP-run states. But specifically, alcohol, is that something which the party itself has a strong view on, the fact that there should be prohibition?
Vikram, I think one of the states which has actually implemented recently a full-scale prohibition is Bihar, which is not a BJP-ruled state.
Yeah.
But increasingly, there is possibly public support and public demand for carrying through with this kind of measure, particularly in states like Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Bihar, states which have actually been laggard in terms of economic status, which have been somewhat backward, and liquor. Possibly this has also contributed to the social unrest and social problems or social evils in those states. So when you have a large a section of the population appreciating a measure like this, I think it's incumbent upon states to really try and do what the public really what the public demand is. Certainly there can be no case for liquor being liquor is certainly not a good thing for health. No one has a case for liquor being a sort of a basic necessity of life.
But naturally, but I guess the question, GVL, the question is not whether liquor is good for you or bad for you, but I think the question is more about whether prohibition actually works. Remember, the United States tried it, and we all know what happened with that. Led to the rise of the mafia, led to a whole lot of other things. Whether prohibition works is the more important question when it comes to that. You mentioned in Bihar. Let me just go across to Manish, who's been there in Bihar, of course, looking at it at great length. Manish, tell us about the example of how Bihar, the prohibition that has happened, how has it actually worked on the ground? Has it made it better? Are women, in particular, women were the people in Bihar who were pushing for it. You should have prohibition. Has it worked or has it not worked?
It has its own plus and as well as it has its own minus. As far as positives are concerned, of course, Vikram, there are a lot of positives. The crime has come down. At least the figures attest to this fact. Also, the road accidents has gone down. There is a kind of peace, no more classes, social classes, which used to take place post, consumption of liquor. But at the same time, you can see that there is a parallel industry, the bootlegging industry. The liquor is available, the home delivery is being done, whether it's a foreign liquor or it's a country-made liquor. But of course, people are not taking the risk of coming out after consuming liquor, whether it's a country-made liquor inside the villages, in the countryside or in the cities. But at the same time, it has really affected the Bihar economy. You can see the cities, the district headquarters as well as the state capital Patna. There is very less economic activity, especially after sunset. There is hardly any traffic on the road. But at the same time, I can tell you, Vikram, the costliest flight out of Patna is the last flight, which is at 8:55, because everyone knows that nobody wants to stay back in Patna after sunset once, at least in the last 1 year. Vikram.
All right, Manish. So partially successful, partially not successful. Has drinking actually gone down, or has it just gone underground? I think that's the key question, Manish.
It has gone down as well as it has gone underground also. But of course, the consumption has drastically gone down because the liquor has become very expensive. So whoever is consuming, they have cut down on their intakes. But it's not that it's not available, because Bihar has got a porous border. Nepal, West Bengal, Jharkhand, everywhere, the liquor is freely available. So people migrate to those states, and those states, especially Jharkhand and West Bengal, the liquor trade is really booming post, prohibition.
All right.
Was imposed last year in April. Vikram.
All right, Manish, thanks for joining us with some of those lessons from what actually happened in Bihar, and it seems to be a bit of a mixed picture. Pinky, Anand, let me just get the others in on this before I shift to the highways and, what they've really done. Pinky, Anand, your sense as somebody, who's looked at this issue from a legal point of view, does prohibition, does the banning of something actually work, or is it simply pushed underground?
Vikram, it's always difficult to answer this question, to be very honest. But at the same time, I might say that prohibition does have a habit of actually only pushing underground what does continue to happen despite imposing a ban. So there are these typical problems that happen when you bring about a law which involves prohibition, whether it is in the field of liquor banning or it is other banning. These kind of issues do come up. At the same time, there is always a positive impact that the law does have. I mean, the actual intakes do go down. Some part of it goes underground, but some part of it goes down.
Yeah,
so it's really a very tricky question as to which way the ball rolls.
So before I shift to the highways, JV, let me throw that back to you. Part of the issue of what Pinky is saying is, and you will find that, I guess, in state after state which has tried it, while alcohol is not being prohibited, then the revenue that is coming from that, there's a tax on alcohol, that revenue comes to the state. It can be used for the poor, it can be used for various social schemes and the rest of it. Once it is pushed underground, that same money, that same revenue is actually going quite often to the underground, to the underworld, to criminal gangs, to illegal activity. So you're diverting money from the state's coffers to criminals. That can't possibly be good.
No, Vikram, that's a question of ineffective implementation and lack of proper seriousness also in the law and order machinery to really curb that kind of a menace seriously. I think it would happen in cases where the whole plot, the policy is not implemented with a degree of sincerity. Where it is done with sincerity, you can curb this menace to a great extent.
I would love you to show me.
Because the fact that government is foregoing so much.
I would love you to show me one example. I would love you to show me one example anywhere in the world where this has actually been able to be implemented without any leakage, whether it is the United States, whether it is Gujarat, whether it is any other country that's tried it, there's always been leakage. But let me just hold the thought on that and let's shift to what the courts have just said, which has also led to lots and lots of headlines, and that's what everyone else is waiting to jump into. On Harman's petition, actually, who's there with us on this particular program, the Supreme Court has ruled that there will be no liquor sale within 500 meters of a highway. Now, first people were thinking that that would be basically applicable to liquor vends, those shops you have along a highway where you can buy booze and carry it with you. But going forward, the Supreme Court has now clarified this also applies to bars, to the serving of alcohol inside hotels. If you're having it within your room, even that's not quite okay. And that, of course, has led to considerable confusion, and a lot of people, some restaurants have stopped serving liquor, others have found interesting ways of getting around it. Some state governments have tried to find ways to circumvent the ban. They've redesignated roads from highways into being state roads. And also you've seen situations all over the country where many restaurants and pubs have shifted the path to them so that it's now suddenly more than 500 meters away. It happened in Cyber Hub, for example, in Gurugram just over the last couple of days. Before I come to Ankur and to others to say what you think about this, Harman, let me just come to you, because you're the petitioner. You're the one who went to the Supreme Court, and you went to the Supreme Court for a really sound reason. You said people are drinking and driving on highways. That's leading to accidents. You yourself have suffered as a result of that. And because of road safety, you went ahead with your petition. How do you think, I mean, you've seen the entire ruckus that's been happening for the last couple of weeks. How do you interpret that?
Whenever there is a change, we react to it. So this is a reaction to that change, which was anticipated had the governments worked well in time. Since 2004, the Ministry of Road Transport and Highway, Government of India, has been sending advisories to all the states and union territories time and again to do this, to remove the sale of liquor from the highways, and secondly, to increase checking of drink driving through better enforcement. So some of the cities, they did work on the enforcement part, but largely the primary thing of selling alcohol along the highways, this thing kept increasing on and on. None of the state went ahead and adhered to that advisory which was issued by the ministry time and again.
Your main point, if I can understand why you went ahead with the petition, Arvind, the reason you filed that petition was you were concerned about truckers and others buying alcohol, drinking and drunk driving, making India's highways one of the most unsafe anywhere in the world. That's what your basic concern was.
No, it's not just about the truckers. We have this kind of a misconception that it is only the truckers who are drinking
I mean people driving on highways.
It is nearly everybody, all segments of road users. Probably you might not have read about an incident here in Ludhiana where a BMW car was split into 3 pieces because the youngsters in the car, they were too high and they were driving too fast because of their excitement.
Okay, let me get the others in. Let me get the others in to see what they react to it.
The users of cycles, non-motorized vehicles who are also sharing the same road.
Okay. I mean,
and they are also coming drunk.
Okay, Ankur, if I can, let me just get Ankur in on this. Ankur, the reason why he filed that petition and why the Supreme Court is upset about this, you can't argue with the fact that there are a large number of deaths on highways and that drunken driving probably contributes to it. You've taken grave exception, however, to the way this is being implemented right now and the final interpretation that the courts have taken. What's your issue with the way it's happening right now?
See, Vikram, the point is that first of all, I agree, and it's Supreme Court is the prime court, is the apex court, and of course, I mean they've given a ruling and they've given a judgment, and of course, I mean we need to believe in that the way it has happened. The problem is that if it is a vend, you can easily move that vend from wherever it is to, because it's in a shanty, it's in a shed, and you can easily move that. But infrastructure of hotels, which unfortunately in our country are mainly on highways, because the urbanization of our country has actually happened around the highways. You know, you cannot move something which is, infrastructure which is 7.5, 10 acres or millions of square feet constructed. You can't move them out or out of that. So the other thing also is that we are serving guests, both residents. We are serving alcohol to guests who are coming in from abroad. We are serving guests who have drivers and everything else. To have a ban across that, I mean, though we don't completely thrive on serving and selling alcohol, but it's a very, very important way of very, very important unit of what we are supposed to give to our customers. Also, 5-star hotels around the world, you only get a classification if you are serving alcohol. Otherwise, you are not classified as a star hotel.
Okay, so Rahul Singh, the other aspect of that, I guess, taking up from what Ankur was saying, would be theoretically, it's one thing to be buying alcohol and going off onto the road. But if the problem is going to be you are drinking inside a hotel or in a hotel room or in a restaurant or a bar, and then you're going out and driving, theoretically you could do that a kilometer away and still get onto that same highway and still kill somebody. So that 500-meter issue is not very clear-cut. And in fact, we are seeing in the last couple of weeks, there are stories just today of what's happened in the last couple of days in Gurugram, where roads are being changed because it's how far you have to drive to actually get to the restaurant or the bar. The same restaurants and the same bars are finding ways of circumventing this by just making sure that it's a slightly circuitous maze-like route to get to that restaurant, and now suddenly they are allowed to serve alcohol.
Okay, so I've got two views to this. I have a moral view and I have a legal view.
Carry on.
On the moral view, the way it works right now is, okay, can you hear me? Okay, fair enough. Okay, so the genesis of this problem starts from responsible drinking or irresponsible drinking. For certain segments of society who are irresponsible, why should the responsible people suffer? You know, we have the right for freedom. If I am drinking with dignity, and I have a situation where I am very responsible, I have a designated driver, I use a public transport, I take a Uber or an Ola. Why should I suffer because there are some irresponsible people out there who've been drinking and driving? On the other side, why does it only be for the highway? Anybody who could be drinking and driving could have a fatal accident anywhere. It could be anywhere on the roads. It's just not highways. So getting into the genesis of this situation, why would you basically not penalize or not enforce or deter the person who's irresponsible? Across the world, it's been proven. You know, you go to Sheikh Zayed Road, it's a 16-lane highway in Dubai, and nobody dares to even think of actually drinking and driving.
So your point is, don't crack down on the sale of alcohol. You're saying
you have certain elements who are irresponsible.
Okay, you're saying don't crack down on the sale, blanket ban on sale of alcohol anyway, including in restaurants and hotels. Crack down on the people who are actually irresponsible. Pinky Anand, G.V. Narasimha Rao. Pinky, let me start with you. Would you agree with what you've just heard from both of them, that maybe this needs to be tweaked or rethought a little bit?
I mean, there is a viewpoint to the whole situation, because ultimately, what are you talking about? People who are engaging in drunken driving. Is it only on highways? It is not outside highways. What are your rights? What are your fundamental rights? The revenues of various states, the business opportunities of various. So I think it has created a lot of furor, and possibly some kind of discussion or tweaking may be required.
Right. G.V. Narasimha Rao, I mean, we heard last week on this very program, I was hearing from Nitin Gadkari saying, well, we respect the courts, but we have to figure out where we're going to go forward with so many blanket bans. We are seeing all sorts of interesting things being done on the ground to try and get around this. What is it that you would suggest that the government do now to try and find an answer to this? I think what Ankur and others were saying is, maybe you need to draw some sort of a distinction, which is what I think was attempted to be done before the court, between people selling alcohol in vans on the side of the road and, let's say, a 5-star hotel which is 300 or 400 yards away from a highway. Maybe the same rules don't need to apply to both.
No, Vikram, I think now that we have a judicial pronouncement, I think some states have actually tried to make a reference to the Honorable President. So there is a presidential reference that has been talked about to the Honorable Supreme Court to examine this, the gravity of the problem, and come up with maybe a viable solution that on the one hand ensures public safety, and on the other does not really put huge costs on the industry and employment. So I think we will have to see over the next few days. But what we have seen now is some kind of a quick fix solution with a large number of roads being designated as district roads, local roads, which to some extent is not a bad thing, because a lot of highways pass through the metro cities. And the entire stretch of it, say on the NH8 from say from Mahipalpur towards to almost end of Gurgaon, that's about a 30-kilometer stretch, which is a highway, but which is actually
I'm out of time. I just want to get Harman.
Are frequented by people living there.
Harman, very last quick word from you. Supposing there is a presidential reference or a thing comes back into the court with a review petition, would you be okay with some sort of an exception for 5-star hotels or restaurants or bars, or would you not want any exception to be made for them, implemented as it is right now?
This first, like a presidential reference for this kind of a thing, which is about safety and about the sale of liquor, would set a very bad example about our country worldwide. Already we are trying to circumvent the orders by denotifying the roads, and now whatever we are seeing in Gurugram lately, where they have coined the word motorable, they have included it on their own in the order. Wherever the state did not represent itself in 3.5 months in the Honorable Supreme Court. So I don't think like this kind of a social differentiation or a responsible drinker or an irresponsible drinker could be taken out.
All right, Harman, thank you all so much. I'm afraid we are out of time right now. But I think
just a 6-year-old child.
All right, I'm afraid we are out of time. We'll have to see what eventually happens in this, because obviously there is a certain social reason for why Harman wanted to do this. There are a large number of people who are dying on India's roads, and something needs to be done about that. How do you match that against some of the other concerns that have been expressed out here? That's where the fine print is actually going to have to be seen. We're going to have to leave it here just for this moment. We'll be back again tomorrow, same time.